Imagine a perfect tyrant. This tyrant doesn't need soldiers, or secret police, or public executions. They don't need to shout from a balcony or plaster their face on every wall. In fact, you've never even seen their face. This tyrant rules without a single act of violence. Instead, you wake up every morning and willingly, almost gratefully, obey their commands. You speak their language, you work towards their goals, and at the end of the day, you might even thank them for the opportunity. This tyrant isn't a person. It isn't a single entity. It's the invisible architecture of our modern lives. It's the employment contract you signed without reading every clause. It's the silent, ever-present algorithm curating your reality second by second. And it's the labyrinth of faceless government policy that dictates the boundaries of your world. We have this strange, almost romanticized idea of what oppression looks like. We picture old newsreels, jackbooted soldiers marching in lockstep, fervent crowds saluting a single leader, the overt and brutal machinery of a totalitarian state. We look back at the surveillance of Stalinist Russia or the terrifying propaganda of Nazi Germany, and we ask ourselves, how could people live like that? How could they not see what was happening? But that question misses the point entirely. It assumes that tyranny always announces itself, that it arrives with a thunderclap and a declaration of war on freedom. The most effective kinds of power are never that obvious. The most effective power is the kind that doesn't feel like power at all. It's the kind we normalize, the kind we internalize, the kind we're conditioned to call just the way things are. What if the fundamental mechanisms of those historical regimes, the constant surveillance, the shaping of narratives, the manipulation of behavior, the demand for absolute compliance, haven't vanished? What if they've simply just changed their clothes? What if they've become quieter, more sophisticated, and embedded themselves so deeply into our daily routines that we don't even recognize them as control anymore? This is the central idea we're going to explore. That in our pursuit of a life free from visible oppressors, we've stumbled into a kind of new cage. A comfortable cage, maybe with digital conveniences and quarterly bonuses, but a cage nonetheless. A cage built by three modern interlocking systems of power. Your boss, the algorithm, and your government. These are the new dictators, the faceless tyrants who rule, not by force, but by protocol, by code, and by policy. And their greatest strength is our collective inability to see them for what they truly are. Let's start with the most familiar of our new masters, the corporate world. We enter it with a specific vocabulary, a set of fictions we tell ourselves. We aren't just workers, we're team members, associates, or part of a family. We don't just complete tasks, we're driving synergy, actualizing our potential, and contributing to a mission. This language is deliberate. It's designed to create a feeling of shared purpose, of a partnership. But this comforting story masks a rigid, unyielding hierarchy of power, a modern form of feudalism dressed in business casual. At the heart of this system is a demand for absolute loyalty, one that echoes the loyalty oaths of old authoritarian regimes. Think about the documents you signed for a new job. The non-disclosure agreement, the NDA, isn't just for high-level execs anymore. It's now a standard tool to ensure that the company's inner workings, its culture, its ethics, its mistakes, remain hidden from public view. It is a vow of silence. Then you have the value pledges and codes of conduct, which often go far beyond legal requirements, dictating not just your professional behavior, but your loyalty to a specific corporate ideology. You are expected to embody the company's values, to be a brand ambassador, to live the mission. Dissent isn't just disagreement. It's a violation of the cultural code. It gets you labeled not a team player, the corporate world's version of being a dissident. This demand for ideological purity is enforced by an ever-watchful eye. The panopticon was a prison concept from the philosopher Jeremy Bentham, a circular building where a single guard could watch all the prisoners without them knowing when they were being watched. The result? The prisoners, under the mere possibility of constant surveillance, would start to police their own behaviour. The modern workplace is a digital panopticon. The growth of employee monitoring software has been staggering. By 2025, it's predicted that 70% of large companies will actively monitor their employees, a significant jump from previous years. And this isn't just about tracking if you're logged in. We're talking about software that logs every keystroke, takes screenshots of your desktop, analyzes your emails for keywords, tracks your web browsing, and even monitors your physical location. Some AI-driven systems now promise to predict your behavior or flag you as a retention risk. The psychological effect is exactly what Bentham intended: self-censorship and anxious conformity. It's no surprise that over half of employees, 56% to be exact, report feeling anxiety and stress because they are being monitored. You hesitate before sending a joke to a coworker. You think twice before searching for a news article that might be deemed controversial, and you become hyper-aware of your active status, leading to performative work, like jiggling your mouse just to keep that little green light on. This isn't really about improving productivity. It's about enforcing a state of perpetual psychological tension, a low-grade fear that ensures you are always consciously or subconsciously aligning your behavior with what the company wants. And what happens when you fail to conform? In the old world of visible tyrants, dissidents were imprisoned. In the world of corporate tyranny, they are quietly fired. This is the cold, bureaucratic process managed by human resources, the company's internal control center. It's a slow-motion termination, designed to be legally defensible and psychologically crushing. If you ask too many questions or challenge a new policy, you might find yourself on a performance improvement plan, or PIP. This plan often comes with vague or impossible to achieve goals. It's not a tool for improvement. It's a tool for documentation. It creates a paper trail that justifies your eventual termination, framing it as your failure, not the company's decision to get rid of a non-conformist. Other methods are even more subtle. You might be consistently overlooked for promotions, assigned to dead-end projects, or socially isolated. It's a form of corporate blacklisting, a way of managing you out by making your work life unbearable. The whole process is wrapped up in the sterile, unassailable language of policy. The manager is just following HR. HR is just enforcing company policy. There is no single person to hold accountable. There is only the system, a faceless authority you can't reason with. This entire structure is propped up by the classic carrot and stick. The carrot is the promise of a bonus, a promotion, or even being named Employee of the Month. These aren't just rewards, they are instruments of behavioral conditioning. They train you to channel all your energy toward activities that benefit the corporate bottom line. The stick is the constant underlying fear of losing it all. The fear of a bad review, of being put on that PIP, of being on the next layoff list. This fear creates a culture where you don't pitch the radical idea that might fail. You pitch the safe idea that gets approved. You don't question the ethics of a new project. You focus on delivering it on time. As the philosopher Byung-Chul Han observes, we've shifted from a disciplinary society to an achievement society. We're no longer just obedience subjects under a master. We are achievement subjects who have internalized the pressure to perform. We've become our own taskmasters, willingly driving ourselves to exhaustion to play by the rules our corporate overlords set. If the corporate tyrant controls our work, our next dictator controls something far more fundamental: our perception of reality itself. The algorithm is the invisible god of the 21st century. It's a silent, omnipresent force that dictates what we see, what we believe, what we desire, and ultimately, who we become. Its power isn't coercive in the old-fashioned sense. It operates through seduction, personalization, and the relentless exploitation of our deepest psychological weak spots. Every time you open social media, a news app, or a streaming service. You're not looking through a window into the world, you're looking at a mirror, a carefully constructed reality curated just for you. This is the age of the curated belief system. Algorithms track hundreds, if not thousands of data points about you. Every like, every share, every search, even how long your cursor hovers over an image. This data builds a complex, predictive model of your personality, your fears, and your desires. The platform then feeds you content it knows you're most likely to engage with. It's a simple, powerful feedback loop. You engage with what you see, so you see more of what you engage with. The result is the creation of what we call echo chambers, or filter bubbles. You're shown content that reinforces your existing beliefs, while things that might challenge you are quietly filtered out. Over time, this digital segregation warps your perception of the world. Your own views start to seem like the overwhelming consensus, while opposing views seem more extreme and alien than they actually are. Political polarization intensifies, empathy erodes, and common ground just dissolves. This is a form of social control that would have been the envy of any 20th century propagandist. You don't need to burn books, you just need to change the recommendation engine. The control mechanisms are subtle but powerful. Think about shadow banning, where a user's content is made invisible to others without them ever being told, or the opaque and constantly shifting rules of content moderation, where one person's political speech is another's harmful misinformation. These aren't neutral acts, they are editorial decisions that enforce unspoken norms. They're the algorithmic equivalent of a state censor, but without a name, a face, or a clear process for appeal. This is what political theorist Hannah Arendt observed in totalitarian states. Tyrants want to keep people ignorant of one another, because shared knowledge creates trust, and trust is the foundation of resistance. This control over our information diet is achieved by masterfully manipulating our brain chemistry. Social media platforms are designed to be addictive. They are engineered to trigger hits of dopamine, creating a compulsive feedback loop. The little red notification icon, the like counter, the infinite scroll, these are not just handy features, they are carefully calibrated instruments of behavioral conditioning. A 2024 study in psychological science found that constant exposure to algorithmically selected emotionally charged content can heighten stress, anxiety, and even paranoia. The algorithms learn that outrage and fear are powerful drivers of engagement, so our feeds become a chaotic rollercoaster of emotional highs and lows, leaving us agitated and mentally exhausted. We become conditioned to crave the next emotional jolt, which erodes our ability to just sit and think. We are being psychologically herded, our emotional states managed and monetized in real time. Shoshana Zuboff calls this surveillance capitalism. She argues we're no longer the customers of these tech companies. We are the raw material. Our private human experience is being claimed, processed into behavioral data, and sold as prediction products to advertisers and political campaigns. The goal is no longer just to monitor our behavior, but to actuate it, to tune, herd, and condition us toward their most profitable outcomes. This algorithmic control is no longer just on our screens, it's rapidly colonizing the workplace, creating the automated boss. In Amazon warehouses, workers are managed by algorithms that monitor their every move, calculating their time off task down to the second. These systems can automatically generate warnings and even termination notices without any human oversight. In the gig economy, drivers for ride-sharing and delivery apps are managed almost entirely by an algorithm. It sets their pay, assigns their jobs, and can deactivate them based on customer rating. You can't negotiate with an algorithm. You can't ask it for context or explain a personal emergency. You can only obey or be cut off from your income. This is the bleeding edge of our new tyranny, a world where management isn't just impersonal, but non-human, and where our livelihoods depend on the cold, opaque logic of code. Our third tyrant is the oldest, and maybe the most insidious, because its power lies in its banality. It's bureaucracy, the faceless, sprawling, and often maddening system of rules, procedures, and paperwork that governs so much of our lives. If the corporate tyrant demands our obedience, and the algorithmic tyrant shapes our minds, the bureaucratic tyrant controls us through something much simpler: inertia. It drains our will to resist by making change so complex and demoralizing that just going along with it becomes the easiest option. The sociologist Max Weber worried about humanity becoming trapped in an iron cage of rule-based rational control. This iron cage is the world of endless forms, complex regulations, and the soul-crushing phase: we're just following policy. That phrase is the ultimate mantra of bureaucratic power. It's a shield that deflects all personal responsibility. The person in front of you isn't the one denying your request. They're just an agent of the system. The system itself is the authority, an abstract collection of rules with no one to hold accountable. This creates a kind of Kafkaesque paralysis. You're fighting a ghost. You can spend weeks navigating a maze of departments and phone trees only to end right back where you started, defeated by the sheer weight of the process. This inertia isn't a bug, it's a core feature. It's a powerful tool for maintaining the status quo. Nowhere is this form of control more foundational than in our schools. We like to think of schools as places of enlightenment, but from a systemic view, they are also powerful engines of indoctrination. The very structure of modern education is a legacy of the 18th century Prussian model, which was explicitly designed to create docile subjects and compliant factory workers. The overt curriculum teaches reading and math, but the covert curriculum teaches obedience. Think about the rhythm of a school day. You move when a bell rings. You sit in straight rows. You raise your hand and wait to be called on to speak. These aren't just rules for order, they are training exercises for a life of compliance in hierarchical structures. They prepare you to become a compliant employee in a bureaucratic workplace. The primary tool for enforcing this is the standardized test. These tests are presented as objective measures of achievement, but they are deeply ideological. They teach that for every question, there is one, and only one, correct answer, predetermined by an unseen authority. Creativity and critical thinking aren't rewarded. In fact, they're often penalized. Success is defined as the ability to memorize and regurgitate the approved information. The system filters for compliance, rewarding those who are best at playing by the rules and marginalizing those who think differently. It teaches that authority is not to be questioned. This suppression of dissent is often framed in the language of safety. A student who questions the curriculum might be labeled as disruptive. A university that hosts a controversial speaker might be accused of creating an unsafe space. This language, while well-intentioned, can be co-opted to shut down difficult conversations and reinforce dominant narratives. The ultimate power of bureaucracy is its ability to set the defaults for our lives. The path of least resistance is always to follow the procedure, fill out the form, accept the established curriculum. To do otherwise requires an enormous amount of energy. So most of us, understandably, choose to conserve our energy. We follow the rules because it's just easier than fighting them. It's the tyranny of the default option, a slow and quiet force that shapes our lives by making the cage the most comfortable place to be. If this is resonating with you, if you're starting to see the outlines of the cage, please consider subscribing to this channel. It's a small act of defiance against the algorithmic feed that wants to decide for you what's important. More importantly, join the conversation down in the comments below. Your insights and experiences are a crucial part of breaking the isolation these systems depend on. Okay, so we started with the image of a tyrant you can't see. We've looked at 3 of its modern faces. The corporate tyrant, which demands total loyalty and enforces it with digital surveillance and the cold machinery of HR. The algorithmic dictator, which shapes our reality and manipulates our emotions for profit. And the bureaucratic ghost, which paralyzes dissent through the soul-crushing weight of its own inertia. These 3 systems aren't separate, they're deeply intertwined. The education system produces the compliant student who is perfectly primed to become the compliant employee. That employee then spends their days in a corporate structure that mirrors the hierarchies they've always known, their behavior fine-tuned by performance monitoring algorithms. And in their free time, their beliefs and desires are curated by the same algorithmic logic that powers their workplace, a logic often enabled by slow-moving government regulations that are themselves a product of bureaucratic inertia. It's a self-reinforcing loop of control. This brings us to the most unsettling part of our modern condition, what we can call the comfortable cage. We've traded the overt, brutal tyranny of the past for a more subtle, invisible, and arguably more effective form of obedience. Freedom in this new world is often just choosing your preferred tyrant. You can choose which corporation to sell your loyalty to. You can choose which social media platform curates your reality. But the fundamental structures of control remain largely the same. The illusion of choice masks the absence of real autonomy. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han posits that we live in a burnout society. He argues that the defining feature of our time isn't external oppression, but self-exploitation. We are no longer forced into submission by a visible master. We have internalized the master. We have become entrepreneurs of ourselves, constantly optimizing and performing, driven by the illusion that this relentless activity is the ultimate expression of our freedom. The result isn't revolution, but widespread depression and exhaustion. We're too tired to resist a system that we are actively helping to uphold. The ultimate power of this new dictatorship, this interlocking system of control, lies in its normalization. It's the water we swim in. The power comes from its invisibility, from our collective agreement to call it normal life. The first, most crucial step toward reclaiming any genuine freedom isn't a grand act of rebellion. It is a simple, quiet act of seeing. It's recognizing the bars of the comfortable cage. It's understanding that when your boss monitors your every keystroke, when an algorithm detects what news you see, and when a faceless policy dictates your limits, you aren't engaging with a neutral system. You are in a relationship with power. So, I'll leave you with a final question to think about. Which of these systems do you think holds the most power today? Or are we missing the real tyrant entirely? Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I've been Josh, and this is The Villainous Vault.